you use the word father. I said I would like a Bhishma Pidamaha. So it's a large universal one that you want to give for Dr. P.C. Jain in his memory. Distinguished guests and my dear friends and fellow panelists, Payal Jain, Anand, Dr. Shivaraj Dhaka, Ashish Jain, and all the distinguished gathering here. I understand over 300 people are already there watching, and it's also on the whole thing is also going on YouTube Live. Fantastic. So what a great way to start the first of the inaugural program of the Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav. And we had done this whole program in 1999, so 4 years. The fifth event that we are going to have under the Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav, a week-long celebration of our dear Dr. Prem C. Jain for his love for sustainability and Mother Nature. But before I do that into my address point of view, there are two great octogenarians who were part of our movement there. Dr. Prem C. Jain, who unfortunately had to leave and join the heavenly abode in 2018. And now, 2 days back, we had Rajendra Somani Sahab, R.K. Somani Sahab again. They are both more contemporaries there. He passed away, again joining heavenly abode. They will be meeting there to exchange their greetings and and therefore, as a part of respect, I would like to pay my condolence and also on behalf of all of you to convey our heartfelt condolences to him and family, and pray for peace to the departed soul. Om Shanti, that it be. And since it's an official program, I don't want to break with the silence at this point of time, but very important, both of them being contemporaries, very, very close to each other, more or less same age group they were. Today, had he been alive about 86, that's the time when even Somani Sahab is having same time. That's octogenarian days there. So with these particular opening remarks, I'm extremely happy that we have Payal Jain now, who is a founder of the Prem Jain Memorial Trust, to participate. She, along with Dr. Renu Jain, had also been very happily associated with the work of the Prem Jain Memorial Trust and the start of the Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav, very importantly. And to have continuously 5 years program is something phenomenal. And this week being celebrated for his during his birthday on 26 Jan is a great opportunity for all of us to join together. And from the IGBC itself, I'm extremely happy that Anand and his team have worked very hard with all the 29 chapters that we have around to have nearly 30 odd events in the 7 days time period, something phenomenal, the highest ever. And I'm very grateful that for what they have done, and very interesting one. For many days, about 3 to 4 events are there from morning till evening, late evening on that. Well, IGBC still had a very humble beginning in 2001, and with just a small little building of 20,000 square feet of this great building on the Green Business Center, not only a platinum, but also a net zero energy building. And Dr. Jain played a very pivotal role with his visionary leadership, which he took control over leadership, more importantly, over 15 years back, 2008, he took over and contributed immensely to the growth. That he wanted just 1 billion square feet. Later on, he himself felt that we should have about 10 billion square feet for not 1 square feet for each of the 1 billion population, but now we are about 1.5 billion. About 10 billion was his image. We are pretty close to that particular one. We are about 9.75 billion square feet, and Dr. Jain should be very, very glad to see that his vision has already been fructified, and due to the contribution and the effort of large number of stakeholders there, and the 31 odd rating system that we have, and which covered all aspects. He's the one who visualized, which many other global building councils did not do it. They're all constant building. He's the one who wanted to go building to the built environment, to cover a series of building and the infrastructure, and even take it at city level, and also take it at township level, at campus level, as well as village level. He's the one who had the built environment concept, which is a much larger event of making sustainability work in a very large way. I'm very happy that in this particular event that we have over 1,750 organizations with that, and 190 founding organizations who are all supporting this event in a very large way. And phenomenally, with the type of impact that the IGBC has made, roughly, I hear the latest count with 9.75 billion square feet that we are about 95% plus of the pie of the green building movement in the country. That's fantastic. There's the remaining 5% being given by the other green building councils is fine. But we're very happy that each one has contributed very well. Can you imagine that all this has been such an impact? We are all discussing the climate change agenda time period at this point of time when everybody is talking of what needs to be done on the environment and the ecology and energy issues and all that. And all our contribution of our buildings that we have done, 126 billion units per annum is the energy saving that you have for the entire population of the rural 900 million. We can take care of village lighting. And this is something which is very close in his heart. Villages to be covered like Green Village, which he started there. And that 126 billion units per annum is a phenomenal one. And roughly around 400 billion liters per annum of water saving. Any major mega city, Hyderabad or a Bangalore or a Chennai, the water needs for a year being covered over there. And carbon dioxide emission reduction is the biggest talk that we are having at this point of time. And can you believe over 105 million tons of CO2 emission being reduced? And that will be equivalent to around 120 million cars off the road. That's a phenomenal figure. I just thought, while I thought personally the CO2 reduction component is something that has been impressed me a lot. And the world is looking at what we are contributing of this 9.75 billion, how is contributing to the carbon footprint reduction in a large way is fantastic. And it is at this particular point of time with the climate change agenda looming in a large way, Dr. Jain wanted to have the issues on, you could visualize that we have to get into the net zero series on energy. And we started with net zero energy and then went on in net zero water, then went on net zero carbon and the framework for the carbon and the net zero waste coming in between. And that's something phenomenally good because in the context of COP26 and COP27, India's commitment to be net zero by 2070 and by 2030, about 550 gigawatt of energy to be done through solar energy. Our contribution these days is very important. Therefore, when we did this on the World Earth Day about 2 years back, on April 22nd for IGBC mission on net zero, we had 350 leading corporates and other organizations supporting us. That's a phenomenal amount of commitment joining together in the mission in a large way. And we are very happy that over 1,000 organizations are also joining the movement very shortly for this particular work on net zero energy, water, waste to landfill, as well as the net zero carbon framework. And I'm extremely happy that we have about 100 projects all lined up. I'm very happy. Anand will be talking about that in detail. I shouldn't be spending any further time on that. And most importantly, my good friend, Dr. Shivraj Dhaka will talk on the net zero mission very larger into detail. So you'll have good opportunity here on all that. But most important, I wanted to just say is that not 100 odd projects to be done in different parts of the country on all this net zero mission beyond all the ratings to deal with the building and all the asset classes is something phenomenal. And therefore, I'm very happy that today's program is also on the net zero mission program. And of course, one of the big thrusts that we are given is on the green education. And I'm very happy that we joined hand with the Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav program, along with the Prem Jain Memorial Trust for the last 5 years' time. A lot of program in disseminating information to the students of architecture and engineering and technology and schools, etc. Large way. Payal has done a fantastic job over the last 5 years in this particular area. And we thought we will shift gears and accelerate and make this a much larger national program. And from that particular point of view, the type of MOU that we had with the All India Council of Technical Education to cover 6,600 engineering colleges and the Council of Architecture to cover the architecture schools and planning one. Our whole idea vision is that 10,000 odd professional educational institutions over a period of time will be able to deal with that. And we have MOUs separately with about 16 top universities and institutions, including 2 state-level technical universities of not only Karnataka, but also in Gujarat. And they're also having a program, incidentally, under this. Anand, you should include that also. I just got the information that Gujarat University of Technical Education is having a separate program being organized during this particular week. I'm very happy for that. And this is an important one to have all the young architects and engineers to understand and appreciate. And therefore, the green ambassadors that he has conceptualized and visionary initiatives in the young to put the seeds and, what I call mining the minds of the youngsters is very, very important. And this is what is required in a very large way. And therefore, the IGBC accredited professional associates, which is the new one, which is also being very popular for students to do it along with their graduation. They can also give not many bigger full professional IGBC AP, but also an associate one. It's also catching up very well. And I'm extremely happy that these programs are also part of the program. Just before the start, Payal, I'm sure she'll share in her own way. And so more than 65 or 70 odd events are already there with all programs, not only what IGBC is contributing, what PJMT is contributing, plus other fraternal organizations like ISHRE and others have joined together to make this a large event, to make it a time. I started on a very somber note on the demise of Somani Saab, but then I think I'd like to end with a celebratory mood because this is all about Harit, Prem, Bharat, Mahotsav. Mahotsav is a celebration mood. And we would like to look at it from that point of view to see how best we can go forward. To end, I would like to say that how we can accelerate our efforts and pursuits, not only taken by the government has already recognized, giving a lot of incentives to all the IGBC. One, what can we do with the industry, with the academia, and facilitating the low carbon growth trajectory? The new paradigm is to continue to support the new growth, and India is going to grow in a phenomenal way during this period till 2030. By the time we got 10 trillion economy from roughly 3.5 to 5 trillion by 2025. And therefore, we'll have to facilitate forging new partnership as a win-win between planet, people, and profit. I would like to put people as the center one. And therefore, in conclusion, I would urge all stakeholders to join the green and net zero movement and partake in advancing the goal of greening India, which has been the vision of Dr. Prem C. Jain. And we have this whole program for his great memory. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your inspiring, motivational, and the energetic thoughts. And I'm sure that the delegates are enriched and would now be contributing more towards the environment and green buildings. Thank you very much, sir. Now, it is my indeed pleasure to invite Ms. Payal Jain, founder, Prem Jain Memorial Trust, to deliver the this year theme address. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. I want to say thank you, Suresh ji. Thank you to Gurmeet for driving the Mahotsav for the last 5 years, for driving Prem Jain Memorial Trust. Anand, Puneet, you are doing an incredible job. IGBC is part of PJMT family, so you know how important it is to us. And it's thanks to you that it went from, I think 2019 was probably 25 events. We're already at 65, 70 as we speak. And I'm hoping we will hit 100 this year. And it's all thanks to all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ashish, for being here. Mr. Dhaka, nice to meet you. Thank you very much for being here. I'm really looking forward to both your sessions. I think, Sureshji, you've said it all. I don't have much left to say, but I'm just very excited to hear the session. And it's a fantastic opening and a start to the 5th Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav. Thank you very much for being here. And thank you to our audience for taking out the time on the Monday morning and joining us and being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Payal. Thank you very much. And it is my indeed pleasure to invite my colleague, M. Anand, the Deputy Executive Director, Indian Green Building Council, for enlighten the audience about the thoughts and the new initiative which IGBC has been taken. Over to you, Anand.
Yeah, namaskar, Suresh Saab, and pleasure sharing the dance with Payal Madam and all of us. This event is very, very closer to all of our heart. Puneet, can I get the sharing rights?
Certainly, sir. Just give us a minute.
Are you able to see the screen, Puneet? Please confirm.
Yeah, but make it full screen. Yeah.
I think.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now it's okay. Now it's okay.
Yeah. Once again, very glad to be part of the Prem Jain Memorial Trust PJMT's Harit, Prem, Bharat, Mahotsav. Amazing team they have brought in. Full credit goes to Payal Madam and the entire PJMT team. The letter 5, a holistic green living. In fact, Jain Saab was very, very passionate about the 5 elements of nature, Panchaputas, which is a cornerstone for IGBC. When we all in IGBC saw that 5 being beautifully integrated, I thought of mentioning that. So as Suresh mentioned, Jain Saab was involved right from the day one of our own IGBC headquarters, becoming a world-class, world's greenest building title. This is our own headquarters, CIS Swarajji Godrej Green Business Center, which has earned the title World Green Building Council, the world's greenest building title in way back in 2003, 20 years ago, and India's first platinum rated building, wherein Dr. Jain Saab has played a very, very pivotal role in getting this title. This building got inaugurated by another champion, His Excellency late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Saab on 14th of July, whom he has interacted with. Dr. Jain Saab has interacted with Abdul Kalam Saab in very many forums of IGBC. So they're all being a part of the IGBC. So to whom who are not part of the IGBC, popularly known as IGBC, stands for Indian Green Building Council or CII, started in way back in 2001. The vision of the Indian Green Building Council, again articulated by all the stakeholders who are all listening to us, is enabling sustainable built environment for all. When we say all, that includes human beings and all the living beings on the planet Earth. It goes beyond the human beings. So that gives IGBC a great canvas to do many initiatives and activities, which includes the Harit, Prem, Bharat Mahotsav 2023. And we in IGBC always look forward to these initiatives. And in the process, we want India to become one of the global leaders in sustainable built environment by 2025. That is our chairman, Dr. Prem Jain Saab, always says, Bharat should be the Jagat Guru of sustainability. So that also gives us enormous amount of energy to us and recommit ourselves when we participate in Harit, Prem, Bharat Mahotsav again. So with the support of all the stakeholders, we in IGBC are very proud to get enormous amount of support from, be it the government at both at the center and the state, architects, MEP consultant, engineers, common man, as well as MOU partners, developers, all of them today with all the support. We in IGBC have more than 8,700 plus projects, right from Kashmir to Kanyakumari on down south, and Kohima from the eastern part to the Kutch on the western zone, cutting across all the 5 climatic zones. That makes India very, very unique and very proud with 9.75 billion square feet. I repeat it, 9.75 billion square feet of space adopting IGBC's various rating programs. IGBC being a founding member of World Green Building Council, right from 2004 onwards, all our initiatives are widely appreciated, applauded across all the 70 countries, right from Australia to Americas. Even today's Harit, Prem, Bharat Mahotsav also will be highlighted across the World GBC, more so in the Asia Pacific network. And Dr. Prem Jain Saab is a guiding light for India's green building movement forever, actually, forever. That is how we in IGBC see it. And we are very fortunate to be led by him right from the day 2001 onwards. And I would love to keep it very simple. You will hear more from my colleague, Dr. Shivaraj and Ashish Jain on the technical activities. So as I said earlier, right from 2001 onwards, Dr. Jain Saab was actively involved in every single activity, be it small or big, or be it technical or administrative, all of them. And personally, if you ask me, I was very fortunate to share a dais on the CIF forum on 2002 in New Delhi. That is how Dr. Jain Saab very graciously asked me to share the dais and sit next to him on the dais in New Delhi on the energy efficient windows and building design. This was my very, very first meeting ever since we started. I was very fortunate, and IGBC, all the stakeholders are very fortunate to be associated with him. So this year theme is on the fifth Harit, Prem, Bharat Mahotsav. I would love to highlight 5 elements wherein Dr. Jain Saab has made a very big significant impact. He has made impact on every single activity. I need many, many hours to tell, but I would love to touch upon only on 5 elements to start with. 1, the green rating program. So he was instrumental in developing various rating programs. He started off with IGBC's green homes, because the Indian homes are completely different from the Western world or in the Eastern world. So that was the the first photograph, what you see in 2007. We launched the India's first rating program on green homes. Then having gained enormous amount of experience on the buildings, we moved on to the built environment with the leadership of Dr. Jain Saab and V. Suresh Saab and others on the township, then cities, and world's first rating program on the metros. Again, Dr. Jain Saab has played a very, very vital role on shaping up the metros and railways. 2017, we launched the railways rating program in Mumbai in Green Building Congress in the presence of Dr. Prem Jain Saab, in the presence of then Railway Minister also. And many, many rating programs, almost 22 IGBC's rating programs have been led by Dr. Jain Saab by engaging more and more stakeholders on the relevant areas. Number two, he is very passionate about launching the regional IGBC chapters across the country. In fact, till 2018, he has traveled length and breadth of the country to launch, identify the local regional leadership and the core committee members. Right from Guwahati, I was physically with him when he launched the chapter at Guwahati in the easternmost part also. So he was instrumental in launching, not only launching, shaping up the regional chapter. He has gone to Mysore, Nasik, and many, many places across the country, and then empowered the local regional chapters, the core committees, and wherever possible, he has been physically attended many of the meetings across the country, whereas he has played an important role in shaping up the IGBC's regional chapter network. Third is on executive board. Here again, every executive board, right from 2009, when we started formally meeting as an annual event in Lonavala, you could be able to see in one of the very, very rarest photograph of him without a blazer and a tie, the renowned or the iconic red color tie. If you are able to spot the Lonavala 2009 picture. And in January, Goa 2018 chapter meeting, he has given enormous amount of leadership, visionary thoughts in Goa when we met as a formal IGBC's executive board, which is very, very closer to his heart actually. So that is the one. Fourth one, again, very closer to his heart, working closely with the school children and the architectural children, which he loved the most actually. So here again, he brought in Carrier and Daikin to support IGBC's initiatives. Here again, he has spent an enormous amount of time. He comes 2 days in advance in order to spend a lot of time with the school children, being a part of the jury, listening to the young students. Still, many of them, they keep writing to us, wherein he has made a great impact on shaping and inspiring the young generation. He always says that the planet Earth is much more safer on the safer hands of the young children, especially the school children, and the architectural competition. In fact, every event, architectural competition, he will never miss it actually. And in fact, Sharik Mistri's office is being fully converted into IGBC's office to showcase the architectural design competition. And every minute spent in those 2 days, we remember Dr. Jain Saab's presence. Even today, he is there in one corner and keep listening to all of us when we go to architecture office for this particular architectural design competition. Fifth is on Green Building Congress. Green Building Congress, what it was before he took over and what he has added right from 2005 onwards. You are able to see along with Dr. Kalam Saab, he shared the dais as the President of India. He came and addressed. And then till 2018, he has shaped up the Green Building Congress and taken up in leaps and bounds and made it as Asia's largest Green Building Congress and exhibition with the support of the entire IGBC board and the stakeholders. These are the 5 elements which I wanted to highlight as we are celebrating the 5th year of the Harit, Prem, Bharat Mahotsav. To touch on a macro level, I will take another few more minutes. Forging relationships. In fact, Dr. Jain Saab, age is not with me, but he has done a fabulous job in forging relationship with, be it an ISRE, ASHRE, or any countries, right from Australia to Americas. He is the one who led us from the front. MOU signing with the DMRC, ISRE, National Housing Bank, ASHRE, IPA, to name a few, Indian Institute of Architects, and a lot of things goes on. And he also celebrates every single contribution by all of our stakeholders and country's achievement. Here you see the glimpses of the celebrations of cutting a cake for 5 billion or launching a new chapters. So he always very, very keen in celebrating the success of India's growth on the IGBC. And even today, very recently, we went to Bali. Many of them were asking about many councils, especially Australia, Singapore. All of them were asking about Dr. Prem Jain Saab. Here you see addressing in Melbourne, addressing in Sydney and Hong Kong's and Chicago's. Many people in the green building community across the world will hold Dr. Jain Saab in the highest esteem forever, actually. And he has been for whatever big things. IGBC is very proud to whatever. We cannot say that honor or something. Hall of Fame is also inducted. The Hall of Fame of IGBC got very prestigious by inducting Jain Saab into the Hall of Fame, and then Payal Madam receiving it from Hardik Singh Puri Saab is a very, very emotional moment for all of us. Physically, we wanted him to be there actually, but somehow God had some other plans. And the Path of Green, the book, we all aggressively take it forward. Every single meeting of IGBC or anybody visiting IGBC, we always present the book, and every recipient was very fond about this particular book, which is beautifully authored till he passed away in the month of September 2018. All the points. So once again, we in IGBC always look forward for the Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav 2023, which is we in IGBC and PJMT are an integral part, led by our national chairmen and the executive board members. Enormous amount of activities are happening across the country, as you heard from Mr. V. Suresh and Ms. Payal Jain. So there are many, many activities. Please log on to igbc.in to learn more about this. To sum it up, ladies and gentlemen, this is our own IGBC headquarters, wherein we have met Dr. Jain Saab in the central courtyard many, many times for the last 20 years. Right from the way, the design of the central courtyard, he was there, and he is still there. And to quote unquote, his own powerful quote, I always use it: if we can change the way you think about building, maybe what you build will change the world. Quoted by Dr. late Prem Jain Saab, chairman of IGBC. So we in IGBC are very proud to be part of this particular Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav, which brings in enormous amount of energy in order to accelerate the green building movement. Thank you once again for having us as a part of Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav 2023. Once again, thank you, Payal Madam, for your august presence. Over to you, Puneet.
Yeah, thank you, Anand. And revisiting the old memories are always pleasant. They will also remind us our purpose for a better future and a planet to live in. We in IGBC take pledge to continue walking on the path of green. Thank you, Anand. And the technical session on how buildings can be converted into what first a green building, followed by moving ahead, being a net zero building. I'm inviting my colleague, Dr. Shivraj Thaka, Senior Counselor at CII Indian Green Building Council, to take us to the journey of net zero. Shivraj.
Yeah, Puneet, just a moment. Let me share the screen. Once it's visual, please let me know.
Yes, it is visible.
I will off.
Make it full screen.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Okay. Is it full? Is it full screen?
Yeah. It's fine.
So good morning, everyone. And it is my pleasure and privilege to be part of this very important program, Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav. It is a first session, as already we have heard. And it is always great to be part of a session where Mr. V. Suresh is there, past chairman of IGBC. So thank you, sir, for setting the context for this program and also highlighting key contributions of late Dr. Prem Jain. We are really thankful to Mr. Payal Jain for his virtual gracious presence. My colleague, Mr. M. Anand, Deputy Executive Director, already mentioned the key milestone that we have achieved in the past with support of Dr. Prem Jain and his leadership to have more and more green building all across the country. So I would like to make a small presentation, and it will highlight what are the ways how to achieve net zero. So let me start the presentation. The building you see it here, it's IGBC headquarters, as my colleague Ms. Anand already mentioned about it. And this is the first net zero project of the country. Existing project which has been transformed to net zero by doing deep retrofitting, including air conditioning, air distribution, the chiller plant, and many more things that we did for this building to convert into net zero. So IGBC started mission on net zero in 2021. This is regarding to have more and more corporates, all the building stakeholders to aspire for net zero. But before that, in 2014, IGBC started dialogue on net zero and did work on net zero all across the country with regard to understand the building transformation journey to convert the green building into net zero, to create net zero movement. So the mission of IGBC for net zero is to facilitate India to become one of the foremost countries in transforming to net zero by 2050. A journey to achieve net zero buildings by 2050 in all aspects with regard to net zero energy buildings, net zero water building, zero waste to landfill, and finally achieve the mission of net zero carbon. Till date, more than 300 organizations, including key biggest corporates of India, they have already committed to achieve net zero status for their new as well as existing building stocks. So when we talk about net zero, there are 5 pillars IGBC has created. One of the most important part is whatever we think with regard to net zero, today we have to start the roadmap. If we start the roadmap today, slowly, during 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, we may set a goal. We can set intermediate goals for the buildings to design as well as operate them for net zero. But it is a long journey. It cannot be completed in 1 year, 2 years. So we have to create a mission for net zero, and we should target intermediate target for the buildings to achieve the net zero. The second pillar of this net zero is design and construct for net zero. So it is really difficult to convert every existing building into net zero, but if we design all the new buildings for net zero, we will not have any regret after 5 years or 10 years, or we did some mistake in 2020 or 2022 with regard to net zero. So we should plan to have all new buildings to achieve net zero by 2030. The second part is the existing building stocks, which is millions and millions all across the country. We have to transform them. We have to have complete retrofitting plan for them to convert them into net zero by 2050. When we design and convert the existing building stock into net zero, there would be a very important activity which is called monitoring and verification. M&V exercise will tell us how building has been designed and what could be the performance of that building. When we did retrofitting, did we aspire for operational net zero, or we can further improvise the retrofitting, or whatever the commissioning we did for the building can be further elevated to achieve net zero. So monitoring and verification is extremely important. It should be done rigorously for new buildings and existing buildings when they are ready for operation. The last part is collaboration with government. As we understand, there are several policies all across the country with regard to energy efficiency as well as renewable energy. These policies are not uniform for all of the states or every state. So we need to work with government rigorously so that policies are aligned for energy efficiency. Policies are well developed and they are uniform all across the country with regard to renewable energy penetrations. This will help several organizations, those have already committed for net zero, as well as all the existing customers with regard to their planning and forecasting for having their building project into net zero. So while having the net zero mission, IGBC put a framework first to have the net zero energy. So it has been segregated in 4 pillars: energy, water, waste, and carbon. As we understand, energy gives fast payback. Energy is a real game for all the buildings to have them net zero, because there would be operational cost savings. Whatever the operational cost savings we may have, these are completely transformed to monetary benefits. So this rating system was developed in 2018. Till date, we have more than 70 to 80 projects all across the country. Due to some policies, these numbers are even much lesser after having these journey for IGBC with regard to net zero. But slowly, once policies which are already under transformation with regard to renewable energy, there would be many hundreds and thousand projects coming for net zero. The net zero water rating system was developed into 2020. Net zero water is extremely important, as we may have good rainfall or less rainfall, doesn't matter, but most of the time it is giving enormous benefit in the areas which are having huge water scarcity, and in the project where the cost of water is extremely high. So this rating system having more than 10 projects, 10 key projects all across the country. Some of the projects already achieved net zero water. They are getting tremendous benefit with that. The net zero waste, again, it is not having much monetary benefit today, because it is a problem all across the country with regard to waste management. But slowly it will address some of the major milestone where we have this kind of issues, and waste would be 100% wealth for each of the project. Currently, we are running one project with Enterprise Singapore to have some of the key technologies to India with regard to net zero waste. Friends, while having energy, water, waste, we are completely at the edge to get the net zero carbon. So there would be measures to address the scope 3 emissions, and then have our buildings ready for net zero carbons, and also achieve it for most of the buildings with regard to achievement of energy, water, and waste. So IGBC has more than 100 projects all across the country with regard to this framework. So let me introduce the IGBC definition with regard to net zero. So any building which has been designed for having lowest energy demand, and the building which can achieve highest energy efficiency during operation, and remaining energy whatsoever we have for either new building, just to forecast that, or for the operational building, this should come from the renewable sources. This is the simple definition IGBC had set for net zero energy buildings. And let me tell you, this is well aligned with the policies of Bureau of Energy Efficiency, wherein they have defined a net zero building is one that relies on renewable sources to produce as much as energy it uses, and usually it is measured over a year. So we cannot tell a building to become net zero or net zero energy building on hourly basis, on daily basis, or monthly basis. It is very difficult to do that. But on annual basis, if we do these calculations and we are able to make it 100% grid energy replacement by renewable, we can call our building a net zero. With regard to net zero energy positive building, any building which is having excess renewable energy generation with regard to total energy consumption coming from the grid, a building can be called net zero energy positive as well. So these are the benchmarks which are used by IGBC while having the net zero energy building. Any building where EPI is less than 10 kWh per meter square per year, this building can be called Shunya label or a net zero energy building. Whereas Shunya label plus, or any building which is positive net zero energy, their EPI should be 0 or less. This is only possible when we have more and more renewable energy generation than our total grid energy consumption. So net zero energy building framework, it's a voluntary, it is consensus based, developed by IGBC. This rating system is purely working on performance based approach. This means we cannot have a building which will not settle down the grid energy consumption by renewable. Only having 100% replacement of fossil fuel based energy by renewable can be a net zero building. This rating system, as we mentioned earlier, was developed in 2018, having many projects all across the country of different size and shape. One of the most benefit of this rating system is any building which is under design may address several passive measures which will reduce the energy consumption for throughout the lifespan of the building. The second part is adoption of this rating system will definitely cut down the energy demand of the building. It can simply reduce 30% to 70% based on the building size or the typology, wherein we want to address the energy conservation building code as part of their design measures. This rating system gives 75% weightage on energy efficiency. This means if we implement any of the energy efficiency measures into our project, it will be giving the tangible benefits from the day one of implementation. So giving 75% weightage means any of the equipment we install would be giving huge tangible benefit to the project for next 15 to 20 years. This rating system also encourage and offer immense opportunities for existing buildings to understand, to also identify the gaps while having some deep retrofitting and achieve and set the target for achieving net zero. But again, the condition which is extremely essential for all the buildings to become net zero is 100% offsetting. So this rating system is applicable any type of building which is either new or existing with regard to IGBC rating framework. So while having a net zero rating framework, there are two important policies which is going to have a better leverage for all different type of project is renewable energy policies, which are enforced regulated by MOEFCC, as well as energy efficiency measures which are enforced by Bureau of Energy Efficiency. So both are well addressed in our rating system of net zero. When we consider the holistic approach of net zero, there are a couple of important measures which we should remember. This rating system address specific measures. We may have 10 measures, we may have n number of measures. Each of the measures would be simulated, would be tried to forecast how much energy can be reduced by doing these implementations. Whatever the measures we put which are passive would be helping the building throughout the lifespan to reduce the energy demand. When we talk about active energy efficiency measures, there could be measures related to air conditioning, lighting, auxiliaries, appliances. These measures would help the project to reduce the energy or to cut down the energy demand so that our dependency on the renewable is much lesser. These are a couple of the examples which are passive, which are active, and can reduce the building energy consumption. Whatever the energy consumption left with us, because some of the buildings which are 24 hours operational may have huge energy intensity, it is not possible to have 100% on-site renewable. So project may have on-site RE as based on their capacity, utilization, or the contract demand, and remaining energy should come from the off-site renewable sources, which can be having some purchase power agreement with the DISCOM or RE service providers. So while considering energy efficiency, as you mentioned, it will be having a huge benefit for the project. When we have the energy efficiency, let me tell you some of the projects they have achieved, they have reduced the energy consumption, start from 172 to double digit, less than 90. So this kind of transformation would elevate the aspiration level for existing building to convert them into net zero. While coming to renewable energy, although weightage is like only 25%, but it doesn't mean we are getting only 25% renewable energy for the project. 100% offsetting is essential, but weightage of point scale is like 25%. So project may have net metering, they may have on-site arrangement just to balance the renewable versus fossil fuel-based energy, as well as they may also go for metering with regard to wheeling, so that both would be accounted together to make the building net zero. Some of the key requirement for net zero is first to have the total energy consumption, whether we have only the grid or the DG or DG together, this should be replaced by the renewable generation. Second part is this should also meet the compliance requirement with regard to ECBC 2017. There is an example here. There's an example here. You can have a building which is consuming 1,30,000 unit as per the ECBC requirement also. In actual, this building may be consuming 1 lakh unit. The built up area is 2,000 square feet. We have just calculated the EPI, which stands for Energy Performance Index. The actual EPI of the building is 50. The design EPI is 65. This means our building is better than the compliance requirement. So the EPI ratio, which is nothing, just dividing the actual by the design. So it is 0.6. This means we are meeting the compliance requirement and our building is far efficient than the code compliance requirement. The third most important requirement is any of the building which is designed for net zero should also satisfy the requirement of IEQ, Indoor Environment Quality. This means there would be some codal requirement with regard to SF55 or ISRA IQ standard. If you are meeting these targets, building can certainly achieve for net zero. There are a couple of examples to highlight how to achieve energy efficiency. There would be requirement for envelope measures with regard to roof assembly, wall assembly, and the and the fenestration. Second requirement, which is like air conditioning, it is the main contributor for net zero, because more than 40 to 50% or even more than 50% energy goes to air conditioning. The last requirement is lighting and appliances. I will just go through because there are a couple of other slides where we may have more focus. When we talk about roof assembly, we have some requirement specified by a Bureau of Energy Efficiency. There are different climatic zones, and we should focus how to achieve lowest U factor, which is like overall heat transfer coefficient, so that heat ingress would be reduced just to reduce the sizing of the air conditioning. These are some of the other requirements for wall infrastructure or wall assembly with regard to code compliance. But we should also look after fenestration part very carefully, so that our heat penetration is much less from the glass part. When we have air conditioning, where maximum possibility would be conservation, so we have to focus more and more based on our requirement. What could be the coefficient of performance or IPA for a air conditioning system which is selected for our building. This is very important because most of the buildings would have opportunity to reduce the energy consumption by introducing more and more daylight, as well as to focus on reduce lighting power density. So there's a table given here. It specifies what could be the lighting power density for a given office building or hotel or hospital or any other type of building. There are some more requirements with regard to appliances. More than 17 to 18 different category of appliances are rated by Bureau of Energy Efficiency and green product certification, wherein several products are certified. These products, if we use in any of the net zero building, they would simply reduce our energy consumption, or there would be more and more energy efficiency into the project. The last part is renewable. When we talk about renewable, there is a mandatory requirement to have at least 5% on-site RE, but most of the projects which are like daytime operation, they may harness more and more renewable power during daytime. But nighttime, it would not be easy for them, and they would not find any opportunity to have the windmill. So these kind of projects, they tie up with some of the RE vendors to have the hybrid power, which is combined of like solar as well as the wind, and there would be supply of power throughout the day and nights. There are two certification level with regard to net zero energy. One is net zero energy, wherein project may achieve highest energy efficiency, but there would be some limitation not to have 100% renewable on site. This kind of project can get a net zero energy status. The net zero energy platinum means project is able to have more and more renewable energy on site. At the same time, it is having energy efficiency, and both the score of renewable as well as the energy efficiency gives more than 80 credit points out of 100-point scale. There are a couple of photographs of some of the early adopters of net zero energy. If we talk about most of the tangible benefit of net zero, then getting reduced energy bill of at least 30%, 40% based on the building type, size, or the usability. At the same time, it will have lower power demand. And if we understand the hierarchy of energy use reduction, it may affect several components into the building, including wiring, transformers, and many other equipment. But it is not only the mandatory condition today getting the tangible benefit. There are many compliance requirements all across the country, starting from Bureau of Energy Efficiency, coming from the SEBI and many others. There are intangible benefits, or there are compliance requirements to have net zero energy building for several projects or corporates. So projects are doing because they have already committed for climate change mitigation measures, and they are getting more and more intangible benefits out of that. I would like to show you one case study, which is of IGBC headquarters. Complete retrofitting of all chillers, although they were the highest energy efficient all across the industry when they were installed in 2001 or so. When we retrofitted them, we found the highest energy efficiency while having part load efficiency, because our office is not loaded all across the year for 100% of the occupancy. So it is really important what kind of equipment we select based on our typology of office as well as the usability of that. This is showing how we did the retrofitting of lighting system. You are able to see many lighting fixtures installed because their efficacy is less. These are CFL based lighting fixtures, Their number was like really more than 211, but when we retrofitted with the LED, they are hardly 86. Their efficacy is more than double than what we had with the CFL. Their wattage is just half. So this is the impact of having LED based lighting fixtures. But we should really care what kind of lighting fixtures can be procured. We should ask vendor to give the LM79 report, LM80 report, so that we get the highest quality of LED fixtures. This is showing what could be the tangible benefits. We got 4% savings after doing replacement of CFL by LEDs. The payback is slightly more for our office because we use daylight all throughout the day. This means the uses of artificial light is much lower in our office, but most of the office, they may get ROI within 3 years or so. This is the bifacial solar photovoltaic system. You see the old picture of our building. You see the simulated part of it. And then we have put the bifacial solar photovoltaic system. This means they generate energy from both facade of the solar cell, which is top as well as the bottom. Bottom will be elevated about 1.5 meter above the atop. And atop is completely painted with high SRI paint, which will have the diffuse radiation falling back on the rear facade of the solar cell. This is how our building is completely integrated with the solar photovoltaic system all across the top. And we have also put vertical, which will generate energy in first half from the east and second half from the west. These are some of the spec. Anyhow, my colleague Puneet will be sharing this presentation with all the attendees. So I would not like to stress more upon the spec part. We have also put a sophisticated building management system, and this system diagnoses where we have more and more opportunities to save energy with regard to air distribution or the chiller plant operation, or how we can further optimize so that we can get maximum saving from the BMS system. This is the real-time performance of our building recorded some time back. You are able to see the total installed power is less than what we have total consumed for a given period. This is the graph showing for 2020. Before this, we did not have the net metering. Because of that, we are not able to show you what is the grid feed and energy by renewable sources. This is how the grid energy consumption in 2018-19 we had again, but little part was from the solar. In 2020, it was much more we got from the renewable. And in 2021, hardly some part is coming from the grid, but maximum is from the renewable sources. Second case study, I will not stress much here because of the time limitation, but let me tell you, there are more than 18 implementation has happened to Capgemini Bangalore, wherein they invested more than 21 crore rupees and ROI is still 3.5 years. This means any of the project which is existing, maybe large facility, can get tremendous benefits while going for net zero. We did some of the good work with regard to joint association or joint initiatives with Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation, wherein we published some compendium. You can refer from the IGBC website. This compendium can help projects to identify which technology can be integrated to the project so that they can aspire for net zero. Similarly, there are some policy measures which are analyzed thoroughly for some of the states. Which policy gives better result while going for net zero? Recently, we started one more joint initiative program with Enterprise Singapore, wherein we are trying to facilitate more and more Indian corporates to become net zero by introducing some of the latest, some of the emerging technologies to them to become net zero energy, water, waste, and carbon. When we talk about net zero water, it is very simple, but really difficult to achieve it for some of the projects where we are not able to harvest the water and reuse the water. So for any of the project which is going for net zero water, we have to have minimum raw water consumption. Raw water means any water which is coming from the municipal tanker or the bore well. At the same time, our job is to have more and more alternate water. Alternate water is the water which is coming from the rain, which is coming from the water reuse after treatment. Both the water consumption should be equivalent or should replace the 100% water quantity of fresh water, which is we are taking from any of the source of water, tanker, bore well, or municipal supply. If we are able to replace this water, this project can become net zero water. This rating system was launched by Honorable Vice President of India, Sri M. Venkataya Naidu-ji, during 2020 of Green Building Congress. So this is a simple equation. Any project can test it, try it. If their total raw water consumption is is replaced by 100% of alternate water, this means the rain and the water treatment project can become net zero. I will tell you how to calculate that in some of the coming slides. This is the holistic approach while becoming net zero. First, projects should cut down the water demand. Projects should explore more and more harness of water. This means the rainwater as well as the treated water to be used into the project. Any of the projects which are doing both the activities, but still they will have opportunity. It can be called return water back to the source. This means whatever the water we use for the project, more than that, if we are able to give back to the nature, our project will get more and more reward for it. The last activity is we can take part in one of the community initiatives to enhance the water table. So there are some couple of examples how to check the water efficiency. These requirements are well defined in National Building Code of India, where our past chairman, Mr. V. Suresh, has contributed significantly with regard to NBC development and some of the chapters to be introduced, which are introduced in the NBC. So again, when we talk about harnessing water, only major source would be having the water recharge, water collection. Water collection means we have to create some of the opportunities with regard to either pond or the rainwater harvesting pond, so that we can collect the water and reuse this water. This is one of the finest project we did certified long back. This is Soba City, Thrissur, where this artificial lake has been created, and this is the only water source for the entire project, wherein you have village, you have commercial complex, you have multi-dwelling residential units there. So this kind of requirements are well defined, and this is the approach just to identify, just to evaluate whether my project is towards net zero, near net zero, or 100% net zero. So we should have complete alternate water consumption of the project and the total water consumption. If we divide them, we will try to get some numbers, whether it is 0.5, 0.75, 1, 0.8, like that. This means if we get 0.75, our project is able to replace 75% of the water requirement by alternate water. We have given some calculation here. This calculation belongs to Soba City, Thrissur, where they have the storage capacity of lakh. Then this is the total wastewater use. This is the recycled water, and you are able to get like 100 WPR. WPR stands for water performance ratio. This means 100% of the water comes from the alternate sources. There is no other way to get the water. This showcase whether our project can become net water positive or not. If that is the case, we have to give back water more and more to the mother nature, to the motherland also. This is the calculation: water recharge, water return, or water source. Water can also be sold to some of the designated consumers, or any of the project which would like to reuse the water which is treated. If we have this calculation, we can also understand whether my project can become net water positive or not. So if any number coming more than 1, would be a high chances to get the net water positive, but it is really difficult for any of the project, because there is investment, there is a more benefit, but we should have the will for achieving the net water positive. Some of the project, they are able to give back the water, or this water can be channelized further to farmland or some of the farmers, so that they are able to reuse this water which is just collected into the lake also. These are some of the conditions for achieving the net water status. If any of the project is getting water performance ratio less than 0.75, sorry, between 1 and 0.75, project may achieve near net zero water. If this is 1, project can get net zero water. If this is more than 1.10, this means water given back to the source is more than 100%. This kind of project can become water positive. Let me tell you the small story of net zero waste to landfill. So this is really important, and this is a problem everywhere all across the country. So IGBC is supporting projects to become net zero waste or zero waste to landfill. There should be no waste coming or going to the land where this land is designated by government or some agencies just to dump the waste there. So this waste should be, first we should reduce. We can reuse this waste in many different forms. This can be recycled, and this is applicable to whether we have a design project or construction or operation. There are different approaches. There are different compliance options defined for this project to achieve it. This is the simple calculation how to identify a project which is set to go for zero land to west. So again, these are the shareholder where owner can adapt it, developer, tenant during operation, or any project which is in design and construction, or any project which is 100% on operation can adapt this rating system. So last but not the least, the guideline for net zero carbon is under development, but only the guiding framework we have developed in 2021. It addressed the GHG inventarization for scope 1, scope 2, as well as the scope 3. So this rating system would soon be ready by end of this year. So there are immense tangible benefit for any of the project going for net zero with regard to energy efficiency, water efficiency, waste management, and reduce the GHG emissions. If you talk about renewable energy, there would be more and more focus given here, and it will also give the huge tangible benefit to the project. Alternate water is again having a tremendous scope for any of the factories or large residential blocks to reduce the water as well as the energy cost. So net zero is making 100% business case from the day one. So with this, I would like to end my presentation here. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Shivraj, for making us aware about the achievement of net zero by way of design and also for retrofitting. The opportunities are among us to conserve the precious natural resources. Thank you very much. And with this, it has always been a pleasure to invite next speaker and a good friend of us, Mr. Ashish Jain, who's partner at Aeon Consultant, who would be enlightening us about the couple of projects who has achieved the net zero by various interventions. Over to you, Ashish.
Thank you, Puneet, and thank you for inviting for this particular session. It's really awesome to be here once again for Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav. I'll just share my screen without wasting any more time, and we'll start.
It is visible, Ashish, please.
Thank you. So I think we heard quite a lot from Mr. Suresh also, Dr. Shivraj also, and it's really good to hear the thoughts and the details shared in the past talk and presentation. I'll just take it further up there, and the whole theme for today's inaugural that we have is towards net zero. And when we talk about that, slightly, what we really feel pride is that zero or shunya is a number which was invented in India and has become one of the biggest numbers for the world today, biggest interest area for the world today. It not only poses challenges to us, but also gives a lot of opportunities ahead to us. How do we deal with this particular element, especially in our building? And when we talk of buildings, I think zero is representing four main areas: energy, water, waste, and carbon. And we heard the details of IGBC rating systems that are already available, and the details of energy, water, and waste that we have. I would like to take you through towards carbon neutrality, and which is what I would like to present firstly as a concept, and I'll show some of the projects that we are doing in this area and how and what exactly is being done there. Quickly to introduce the topic, I think carbon neutrality, when we talk about, this is one of the center stage topics as we go around. Puneet, I hope my voice is clear, right?
Little more louder.
Is it better?
Yeah, maybe you can speak into the mic.
Sure.
Yeah, much better.
Thank you.
Much better.
Thank you. So when we talk about this carbon neutrality, I think everyone is eager to see how and what best can be done within their projects, within their organizations today, especially after setting up of the goal for the country. So when we talk about this neutrality as a concept, it basically refers to achieving a net zero carbon emissions, especially when we balance our emissions and offset through the sequestration and mitigation strategies on carbon. The balance that we achieve, we achieve neutrality through that. And carbon reduction is basically achieved by firstly calculating our carbon footprint, which is on the left hand side of the image that you see. What are the emissions as far as our materials, construction, operational and design elements are concerned? All of that is taken into account to identify what the carbon footprint is. On the right hand side, what you see out in the image is carbon balancing, which is what is basically done through strategies like renewable energy, on-site, renewable energy off-site, carbon storage, etc. So once we achieve a balance, that's where we really reach the carbon neutrality or net zero carbon. As we see buildings life cycle carbon emissions, it ranges across all the stages of the life cycle of a building, starting right from design, construction stage, operational stage, and also demolition stage. We are yet to see for our buildings the last stage, which is demolition in many cases. There are few which are still happening, but I think construction and operational stage, being a developing country, is something which is majorly ahead of us, where we can reduce our carbon emissions significantly. This particular graph that you see is basically representing the life cycle of a building. And these major spikes that you see over there, the first spike is when our carbon emissions goes up during the construction of the building, construction or the manufacturing of the products. In the operational phase, it reduces, while it again goes up well there is any kind of a refurbishment, because that's where the energy consumption and carbon emissions, they keep increasing. And at the end of the building life cycle, which is the demolition phase. And at each of these stages, we have to see how the carbon is going up and how can we offset that through our mitigation strategies. If we look at the global carbon emissions by sector on the left-hand side, we see around 40% of global carbon emissions are coming out from the building industry. And 23% of the total global emissions comes by manufacturing of three major materials, which is concrete, steel, and aluminum, which is quite significant. And that becomes one of the major strategies when we talk about the carbon emission reduction for any building. There are 139 countries who have already committed to net zero and carbon neutrality. And India has become one of the latest countries to declare at COP26 our carbon neutrality stage, which is 2070, which is one of the last. However, the goals are being set to achieve at much earlier. You've heard in the last presentation, wherein IGBC goals are also aligned to reach there by 2050. And that's where the whole efforts are actually being put. 5-stage commitments which are there as far as India is concerned, including first one, by 2030, we have to have non-fossil fuel energy capacity target of 500 gigawatt. By 2030, our 50% of energy requirements to be met through renewable energy. By 2030, our reduction in the total projected carbon emissions by 1 billion tons, and the reduction in carbon intensity by 45%. Reaching net zero emissions by 2070. These are the targets which have actually led our whole country in this direction of carbon. And gone are the days when the company's performance were actually monitored only by the balance sheet. I think environmental has taken equal impact now to actually evaluate the company's performance and will be taken up going forward. Through some of the case studies, I will just show what exactly is being done. This is one of our commercial projects wherein net zero energy, water, and waste is taken up. This is a large campus project having 6 buildings, and 2 of the buildings are really looking at net zero energy, water, and waste. This is the overall sustainability vision for the project. And when we talk about net zero, I think we've heard in our last presentation also, the key lies in how much can we actually reduce our consumption and then offset it through the renewable energy, which is what has been one of the main focuses when we laid out our strategy for this project also, looking at the design strategies and features, starting from the passive concept stage features to high performance envelopes, daylighting, control on and shading strategies, natural ventilation, and the energy efficiency strategies for all the electromechanical systems. Approach has been taken wherein integrated design approach is being followed, right starting from the project goals to passive design to facade design, interior planning, MEP design. Because when we talk of net zero, there's nothing that can be left. There is no one discipline which can commit to net zero. It is the integrated design which is important, and that is what is being taken here. BIM is one of the integral parts. What we have seen is helping to reduce a lot of design inefficiencies and have a much coordinated designs, which is what is being also applied in the project across all the disciplines. Digital twin is something which is very important when we talk of net zero concept, because before the building actually gets constructed, we want to see how it's actually going to perform on various elements, and the real-time information exchange can happen at the later stages within the building electromechanical systems. These are various integrated simulation studies which are also being taken for the project, right starting from the climatic studies, which becomes the heart of any sustainable design. Looking at the master plan, being a large development, as I saw on the plan, it is very important how the master plan is efficient. How are we taking care of the solar and the wind patterns at the site to the maximum advantage that we have? Looking at facade, energy efficiency, then integrating renewable, and also looking at outdoor comfort. Some of the examples I'll just show you through some of these facade studies that have been done. So this is how the overall radiation levels, the daylight levels, and the glare levels of each of the floors in these buildings have been analyzed. CD, SD, DD, these are the stages of the design, how the designs have progressed through each of these stages, wherein the focus has been to make it more and more efficient building as far as possible, so that we can reduce the amount of energy that we would require to offset. This is, there's been a lot of design iteration as far as the building facade design is concerned, looking at the various shading type of devices on the daylit spaces from different stages of the design. How is it improving? How the glare has been taken across the stages to reduce it. Glazing selection, not only just the selection of the right glazing, but also integrating the facade shading elements into account while the selection of glazing is done. These are all very important aspects from the energy and also the sizing of electromechanical systems. This is how the energy consumption of building comes out, EPI of around 86 for tower 50, 85 EPI of tower 60. And looking at some of the more energy conservation measures, the energy performance indexes have been dropped. And the offset through renewable energy on-site and off-site is a combined strategy which is being taken. Around 20 to 25%, being a high-rise buildings, the amount of capacity of the solar which can be integrated there is around 20 to 25%, and the rest will have to be offset through the off-site energy. This is how the energy numbers are looking up for the project. Looking at the net zero water for tower 50, this is how the water balance and the numbers are looking like. Around 223 KLD of the water demand water is going to the STP, using 100% treated water, doing the rainwater harvesting as the main strategies after really incorporating the energy water conservation measures. Like all of these have been accounted for in the project. And once we see the overall numbers for the water, we are around 78% reduced in the sense of water consumption that we have, and the balance is being taken up through the rainwater holding capacity tanks or the additional STP, which is also being looked at. For net zero waste, the overall strategy lies around zero waste to landfill. And if we really look at the categorization of the waste, on the left it goes dry, e-waste and hazardous waste, and the right hand side is for wet waste generation. The wet waste generation based on the occupancy of the buildings has been derived, and around 1,000 kilogram per day is the dry waste and 500 kg per day is the wet waste. There was a comparison of different organic waste conversion technologies which was also derived, and out of that biogas plant is actually being adopted to go for treatment of the wet waste which is generated at site, because it actually is more robust and giving a byproduct in the form of not only manure which is in the liquid form for landscaping, but also the biogas which can be used in the cooking purposes of the same project. This is just a flow chart of that, and by doing that, there is a fugitive GHG methane emission which is saved for around 0.6 tons CO2 equivalent per day. Around 180 tons CO2 equivalent per year is saved through the net zero waste strategy alone. The project is looking at certifications of energy, water, waste, and also looking at well certification and the net zero development. This is another project. Sorry, I'm being a little fast because of the limit of the time that I have, and we can discuss the Q&A after this. This is a township project that is actually being taken up for the low carbon and sustainable development. The whole vision is to achieve low carbon development as we are going along the path of carbon neutrality and achieve high levels of sustainability by net zero. Now, carbon neutrality is something which is not an overnight achievement. It is a journey, which is where we have to start somewhere and keep measuring and tracking and go along the way. These are the targets for the project, wherein low carbon development, net zero energy, water, waste, and green township rating, all integrated elements are being looked at. When we look at the low carbon part of the project, two main activities that we have to look at. Number one is to control the emissions, and second is to balance the emissions. And these are the strategies which are actually being taken for the carbon neutrality path, starting from the net zero energy, then net zero water, net zero waste, renewable energy. Also looking at the forestry element on the site, how much can we incorporate that, comprehensive transport management, building materials, and operation and management. Looking at net zero energy first, based on the consumption patterns for different buildings that we have on the project, the requirement of solar which was coming out is around 1.2 megawatt of solar panels which are required, which is what is being taken up as 3-acre solar farm. So in this project, we could not use too much of the roof area because the roof design is such that it cannot accommodate too much of solar panel. We have a sloping roof, so not all the roof areas can be used. So solar farm is being taken as one of the key strategy for generating all of the renewable energy and use it in the project. For net zero water, key lies in reducing the demand, as we heard, and producing alternative water, treating wastewater, and designing the green infrastructure. And overall water efficiency being taken. This is the site plan which shows the location of different water tanks and the STPs and other things. This is how the water balance of the project looks like, looking at the domestic water usage, flushing water usage, landscaping, cooling towers, etc. The overall water savings which have been drawn from the baseline comes out to be around 68%. For balance rainwater which is there, the harvesting strategies are being adopted, and overall reduction through that will be used for achieving the net zero water. This is how the overall water balance looks like. Total annual demand, rainwater collection, STP treated water, and around 5.5 lakh of liter per year will be used for the rainwater storage. Net zero waste, we have around 2,000 people population, wherein we are using biogas plant for treating all of the waste which is coming out of the project, and that is being used to get into the net zero waste. Carbon emissions, also we have looked at from different areas how many residential units we have. There is a combination of residential and hostel units, and this is a carbon footprint calculations which have been drawn. Number one, for transportation, how many people, how many cars, how many travels are going to happen. So based on that, what is the carbon emissions going to come out? What is the carbon emission from the waste which will come out? This is the construction, annual energy consumption, transportation, and waste. All of these four areas, the amount of CO2 emissions which is going to come out as setting out the baseline for ourselves, which is around 32.5 lakh CO2 equivalent per year. And these are the strategies being used for reducing the carbon emissions. So net zero energy, as I said, 3-acre solar farm, net zero waste, comprehensive transportation management by electric buses. So most of the commute of the people will happen through these buses which are electric. Forest of around 15 acres is being developed to sequester the carbon emissions which are coming out, and offset through buying renewable energy certificates for the offsite renewable energy that we have. So overall, if we see through these strategies, there is a reduction that we are able to get, and the sequestration is happening to around 55% of the total carbon emissions, which is being achieved. And that is what is being used there. So carbon emissions, carbon balancing. So with a combination of these strategies, we are able to offset around 50% of carbon emissions. Further strategies which are being explored is on the low carbon materials and technologies, larger solar farm, and increased forest area. Within the forest also, there is something missing here, but what kind of trees should we really use? Because every tree has got different sequestration capacity for carbon. So even looking at the ones which have got higher capacity of carbon sequestration is actually being looked at. So stepping towards carbon neutrality is something that actually promises to move towards a more cleaner environment in future, and which is what we feel that future is zero for us, and which has been the genesis for our whole design philosophy at Aeon, and being practiced in our projects and also our own build spaces that we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you very much for suggesting us on what all the great things are doable and how a project can achieve the net zero status, both in terms of energy, water waste, and ultimately carbon. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we have been requesting all of our participants to please put their questions, their suggestions into the chat box, and gradually we would be taking one by one. Thank you. And before moving forward, I'm having a couple of questions which has been posted to me. The first question is Shivraj. Yeah, thanks, Shivraj. The question has been that everyone is now claiming a net zero status. Then how someone can verify those claims, whether the project is actually a net zero or they are only claiming, and on what basis they are claiming the net zero? Shivraj.
Yeah, thanks, Puneet. This is really interesting. And when we have the IGBC net zero certification, we get all the energy bill for the company for a complete 1 year, and also get verification of renewable energy capacity and the renewable energy generation. And then we try to balance them. If they are able to offset 100%, then only project would claim net zero energy.
Yeah, thank you, Shivraj. And Ashish, see, achieving the net zero energy buildings are easier in a low rise or small buildings. And you mentioned a simulation plays a very important role while in designing and developing a particular building in a most efficient way. So whether the simulation approach is appropriate for these smaller buildings, especially when we are looking at the cost associated with these simulations. Yeah, your views on this.
Yeah. So definitely, actually, what we have seen is in our experience in our own projects also is that simulations are not only helping for large buildings, but also for smaller buildings. Generally, the cost should not be taken, which is associated for doing the simulation, but ultimately the outcomes, they help in reducing the cost elsewhere. So just by reducing the size of air conditioning systems, the cost which is getting offset is quite significant. So we have seen they are really useful for be it a small building or a large building. Depending on the size of the building, we can also always decide what type of simulations are really going to be useful for that. That is the only thing, but they are really useful and we should apply that, especially in today's age when all these tools and technologies are available. It makes very good sense to use them.
Yeah, thank you, Ashish. And Anand, someone has been interested in knowing that we have so many guidelines with the IGBC. Where do we stand? What would be the next big thing going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years in which IGBC would be focusing on? Anand.
For me, Puneet?
Yes, Anand. Yes.
Yeah. I see, very interesting question. As our chairman, Mr. V. Suresh, mentioned right from the day one, building typologies are completely very, very sensitive. For example, a metro station is completely different from an office. An office is completely different from a residential project. Residential project is different from a data center. So that is the reason, tongue in cheek, and I can say that every building typology is an animal species by itself. So that is the reason we have 31 rating programs now. The main thrust is going to be on, as beautifully articulated again by our national chairman for government and policy advocacy and immediate process, Mr. V. Suresh, net zero is the real big thing, because government of India has committed, Pradhan Mantri has said in the last COP26 in Glasgow, saying that India will become a net zero carbon emitter by 2070. So 2070, though it may look very far off, we may not we cannot wake up in 2069 and say that what are the things I will do it. So this year, IGBC board has decided. We have several case studies, as you saw from my colleague, Dr. Shivraj Dhaka and Ashish Jain from Eon Experiences. There are thousands and thousands of examples, right from a small residential to a complex campuses going net zero way. So next 8 years, to 2023 to 2030, is going to be an year for deployment of all the strategies and act now, actually. Number one. Number two, though the rating programs are 31 of them are there, our focus is on how do we achieve the intermediate target by 2025. So whatever collectively we are all doing it for the last 20 years, it should lead to a lot of results and aligned with the NDCs and government's roadmap on going net zero way. So 2025, we will all come to know with respect to the renewable energy sources added, the green hydrogen, which is coming up in a very big way, how this net zero carbon, we cannot jump forward with India becoming the most populous country and our priorities on health, education, infrastructure. So all the new buildings from today to 2030 should become net zero. Energy to start with, water, waste, then carbon. That is a step-by-step approach we are doing it. So our entire focus of every IGBC stakeholder, including the person who has asked this question, he or she, our entire focus is on channelizing all our energy, the case studies, bringing in innovative and futuristic technologies in achieving net zero energy, net zero water, net zero waste, and net zero carbon. At the same time, our focus is on right from an affordable house, 400 square feet individual house also, which are all coming up in thousands of projects under the Pradhan Mantri's Aavad Yojana scheme, the infrastructures of hundreds of airports. We should not miss these opportunities. So as far as IGBC is concerned, the board and the entire stakeholders focus is one, is on India's commitment on net zero, 2025 intermediate targets. How do we achieve? So we in IGBC believe in what is measured only can be monitored. What is being very well measured only can be monitored. As my colleague Shivraj mentioned, it is not that I cannot claim my own house as a net zero energy building without doing anything. So how everything is all in, we believe in God, next to God, we believe in data. So the 2025 is still, see, somebody may think that 2025 is too far or 2070. For example, incidentally, many of us are there right from 2001 onwards. 2001 vision, when we set in, we thought 20 years is a long period. We never relaxed actually. So whatever collectively we have done right from 2001 onwards, only you are seeing these benefits in the form of presentation in 2023. So time will fly like a jiffy. So all in front of our eyes, 2030 may come, then 2050 and 2070. And with 1.4 most populous billion people, this is a golden opportunity for all of us to embrace technology, and development is going to stay here, and how it can go greener way, so that, as our chairman, Mr. Suresh mentioned, the people-centric, then it should also make the planet green, at the same time green big in the business sense. That is our tagline from 2000. It's for the PA profit also. So thank you, Puneet. Hope I addressed it.
Yeah. Thank you, Anand. And as you mentioned that the time is the key, but more often we usually heard about the lack of favorable government policies. So I'm requesting Mr. Vishesh to enlighten the audience that how these policies can be further positioned and pushed so that the early adoption of net zero concepts are.
Thank you, Puneet. Thanks for the opportunity. I tried to give some of the things in the chat box reply and also the Q&A box there, and to specifically some of the issues that are raised by 2 or 3 important participants are we going to get a carbon market coming on that? Yes, the answer is yes. With the latest amendment that has already come to the Energy Conservation Act in the both House of Parliament just less than about 2 weeks back, the carbon market will come in a very large way, and any action coming in this particular thing will get rewarded. And that's an immediate answer that we can give on that. On the policy framework, extending forward what Anand rightly said, 2025, I call them as the immediate term. We are in 2023 beginning now. So 2025 are 3 years of 2023, 2024, 2025. And I would like to have a short term coming at 2030, which is also the Sustainable Development Goal to the year 2030. So 17 goals are already available under the SDG goals available, and some of them are also covered in these particular thing. And that will come as the short term one. A medium term should be the 2050, and maybe that's a time when all the new buildings we can cover 2030, and by towards 2050, existing buildings we can do in a very large way. And as Ashish rightly said, you can do at the various stages, at the planning and design stages, implementation stages, and towards the whole life cycle. And I like the way in which he has not left it completing a building, and to see that they maintain. So how do you deal with that? So we try to see the long term as 2070, and the medium term as 2050, and short term as 2030, and immediate term as 2025. We can do that. And I think some of the things which Ashish told over there, I like that particular thing, or the strategies for the low carbon development. In 2 cases he said that our framework that we have of IGBC for net zero carbon, we only have a framework. We have not got the rating on that, which Dr. Dhaka also said on that. we have to do that. I think some of the very good inputs which he has given by Ashish Jain should be utilized on that. And possibly we should associate Ashish in this particular thing on converting the framework into the net zero carbon rating. It will be useful. I know the net zero carbon rating, even though by name is available in the US GBC, really speaking, we analyzed that particularly. Even there, it was not really coming down to the carbon, but maybe on energy and water and material will be measurable, or not at carbon the way Ashish talked about that. And the last point is that whether some handbook can be brought out is a very good question. A lot of guidance would be required. All the professionals are looking forward. I think 2-3 questions which just come on. So can you do that? I think the answer is the type of proactive way in which Anand and his team are working, and Dhaka and his team are working. And he's going to be the one on the net zero in a very large way. For all the new projects which are coming, whatever guiding document can be brought out is a thing on which I'm sure IGBC would definitely like to work on it. And you already have traces of that in presentation number 1 by Dhaka and presentation number 2 given by Ashish Jain. And that's a good request which you got, and we can answer that particular thing. Like the request which has come from Srirangam, they wanted to know what projects. So if he has got any project in Srirangam or Trichy or Madurai, anywhere, any of the projects which they have in mind, our team will be very happy to handhold them, guide them, how to really go about it. But the handbook idea on how to convert on this particular thing, I think the answers are already lying in Dhaka's presentation, Ashish Jain. And I'm sure, Anand, it will be good that we try to bring out a document of that nature as an IGBC document, which will be a great guiding document available for the whole user. Because we are the only one having all the 3 rating and a framework document. Of course, USGBC has got a document. That's why one of the project Ashish has told is on lead. Half the time I wonder, why didn't you go for lead? But the next project he's got for township is going for the IGBC rating, which is a integrated township, because that's the only one which deals at township level and at the built environment level. So the policies are very well in place. The Ministry of Environment, Forest, Ministry of Power, Ministry of Renewable Energy, Ministry of Housing and Urbanization, and Ministry of Water Resources. All these 5, incidentally, the same 5 will come back. Anand started over there, and are already working out on what needs to be done at each one of the level to achieve that particular goal of net zero carbon. Net zero carbon is nothing but a cumulative impact of all these put together. But one thing I can tell, that 75 to 80% of the net zero carbon would be coming primarily from the net zero energy particularly. I'm sure Ashish will agree me on that. You can even give a view on that. But one question I asked him on the embodied energy of material on steel, concrete, cement, and aluminium, which is 28%, which you said over there. On that, we have to, because that's one reason why we are not agreed to do that particular thing by 2050, which developed countries are doing. China is doing 2060. We are doing 2070 to give us a little more time in respect to embodied energy for building materials. So that's a question mark I asked. Would Ashish like to give a short reply on that?
Yes, sir. Embodied energy is definitely one major important area, and there's a lot of work being done. Some of the data is available on that for
Indian data or foreign data?
Yeah,
Indian data is available
for some of the materials, yes. But there's a lot of work which is yet to come in the embodied energy, which is, I think, if you see even in the presentation, I had shared that those are 3 main areas where the next focus is going to be.
Okay.
And how can we reduce it further, actually?
Good, thank you. I think that's it. Thank you, Puneet, for organizing such a wonderful program. And I'm happy even towards the end of it, we started with about 250, where even at this point, about 70, 75 people are still watching. It's good, really. It shows the type of interest on that. Let's build upon this theme on the net zero mission in a very large way, the way in which Shivraj has already outlined for the country over the next few years' time period. A series of initiatives in all the chapters with the professional bodies, architects' professional body, engineers' professional body, MEPF professional body. We got to organize on this net zero. How do you achieve that particular thing? What it means and that. And these 2 gentlemen have done a fantastic job in giving us the right direction for that. So thank you very much to both of them, both Dr. Shivraj Dhaka and Ashish Jain. And I liked it. I given my views also on the chat box as and when it was emerging on the screen on that. Thank you, Puneet. I think we have a good program done, unless Anand wants to give a closing remark.
No, no, sir.
I have a
We
couple of
already summed it up.
announcements.
Our chairman's word is the last word, and we heard it from you, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So those have been the
Thank-
concluding remarks. But before we have been putting the session to an end, we are having a couple of announcements. We would be sharing both the presentations to all the participants who have attended.
Very good.
the program.
I think they'll love it.
Along,
And they are very good presentations. Yeah.
yeah, we are also sending the contact details of Dr. Shivraj and Ashish, so that in case you have been having further queries which may not be answered here, or you would be having some more queries, you may directly contact them, and we all would be happy to handhold and support all the audience. With this, we have been ending for today's session and would request, there have been series of activities which have been planned, as you have heard from Mr. V. Suresh and from Spayal Jain. Around 70 programs has already been scheduled the next 7 days, very tight, energetic and motivating programs. Would request you to join as many as possible those programs to really enlighten you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Puneet, this is just the one over. Out of the 71 is over. Simultaneously, one more. Mala and the team have done another one on same time between 11 to 12:30. So that would be 2 out of 70 by the time we are at 12:50 for day one. Okay, good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. And we look forward for all the active participation for all the participants. Thank you very much. You're a great audience. Thank you, Dr. Shivraj, Ashish. Thank you, Anand, for joining us. And thank you very much, Mr. Suresh. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
You can sign off?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Well done. Well done, Puneet.